Hi Deepak. Hi Rajiv. Hi Swati. Hi Sarvana. Hi Amit. Hi Adbul. Hi Nagraj. Hi Rajshekhar. Hi Umesh. Hi Saran. Hi Revati. Hi Harish. Hi Sarvana. Hi Umesh. Hi Umesh. I'm doing good. Hi Maruti. Hi Ravi. 3 more minutes. We will start the session. Hi Tanup. Hi Anu. Hi Pravash. Hi Raja. Good afternoon. Hi Ashok. Hi Aditya. Hi Vinay.
All right, I think we can get the session started.
Yes Sarvana. Carry on.
All right. So thank you. Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon. So glad to see you again after a week's time. So in our AWS webinar series, so today we are going to talk about the storage services. So just to give a quick recap, so in the last two webinar sessions, we discussed about AWS services and the basics about cloud computing, AWS infrastructure, and the second webinar we discussed about the compute services, AWS compute services. In that we discussed more about Elastic Compute Cloud, and we have seen how to create a Windows EC2 instance and also Linux EC2 instance in a few minutes of time, right? So today we are going to focus on the cloud storage services, specifically the AWS storage services, right? In that, so we are going to discuss about the storage services overview and what are the different storage services are available. In that, we are going to specifically talk about simple storage service, or in shorter, in general, we call it as S3. So we're going to discuss about what are the concepts related to S3 and how you can provision S3 storage in AWS. What are the steps to be followed, and how you can upload your data into an S3, and how you can enable the access of the data which is uploaded for the others to access, and what are the different use cases for which the S3 storage could be used, and what is the pricing is being charged for S3, and we'll see all these things with a live hands-on demo of S3 services. Then finally we'll just park it for a Q&A. I think since it's a continuation of the earlier two sessions, I'm skipping about my introduction, so just briefly tell. So I'm 𝗬𝗻𝗶𝗶𝗵𝐵, and I'm a full stack solution architect, consultant, technology trainer, specialized in cloud computing, big data analytics, and microservices and DevOps, right? And so with that brief introduction, I'm just moving on. So here, let's quickly recap what is AWS and what is the different AWS services out there. Then we will try to align the storage services to that. So AWS is basically stands for Amazon Web Services. It's a secure cloud services platform offering compute power, database storage, networking, content delivery, and other functionality to help businesses scale and grow. We already seen how you can get an elastic computing power. So today we are going to see how you can get an elastic storage from AWS, right? And so these are the different AWS services which currently available. Out of this, so the key or foundational services are going to be the compute services, storage services, and networking. And these three are the key foundational, and on top of that you have a security and management services that's also required to make your like infrastructure operationalize, right? And when it comes to the storage service, basically what is the ask here? Why I need an elastic storage? So when I have a requirement to store a huge volume of data, how much? So maybe few GBs or maybe few TBs or petabytes. So I should be in a position to scale my storage as and when the requirement or demand increases. And generally what we do, we can have something called a NAS or SAN in the traditional infrastructure with the help of network attached storage or a storage area network SAN. We can able to provide the required storage, or we can have a storage servers. But that's something like very specific to that organization. But I want really something like on-demand storage. Whenever I want to store some data, it needs to be stored, and I want a capability to access the data anywhere over the internet. So I need the kind of a flexibility along with the flexibility to scale to any limit. Okay, so that's where I need to go for a different type of storage services. And like overall, if you see, these are the key storage services which AWS offers. What are these things? So this is something like the first and foremost very popular prominent storage service from AWS is AWS Simple Storage Service. Okay, which provides a object storage, or in simpler terms, it's something similar to Google Drive or a, Microsoft OneDrive. Okay, so what you can do, you can just access your Google Drive or a OneDrive. You can create a directory and you can upload your files. It can be smaller files or larger files, and whatever the data you uploaded, you can able to access it over an internet, right? Or even you can share that data to others to access. The pretty similar thing, you can get it with the help of Amazon Simple Storage Service. Okay, so it's an object storage which can be accessible over the internet, and you can store any type of data, any amount of data there. So that is S3. Then other popular storage service is Elastic Blocks, Amazon Elastic Block Storage, or in short we call it as EBS. So EBS basically it's a block storage. When you say block storage, it's something similar to the hard disk in the computer. Okay, so where the EBS to be used is basically whenever you're going to create EC2 volumes. The last webinar we have seen creation of EC2 instances, right? When you're creating the EC2 instance, we also attach the volumes. The volumes you're attaching to the EC2 instances are nothing but EBS volumes. So the way the data is being getting stored in the EBS is more like a blocks. Okay, the raw data would get stored as a blocks, and this is something pretty similar to the hard disk what we have in your computer. Okay, and it's more optimized for the EC2 instances to persist the data and perform the disk read write operations. Okay, so it has its own file system and a file format, and that the data would be stored. And the next type of storage is Amazon Elastic File System, or in short we call it as EFS. What do you mean by EFS? And this is something like you can compare it with your network file system, NFS. Okay, so whenever I want to store the data, so what is the first level of storage? I can go and store in my disk. But normally, if I want to share the data, whatever the data which I am storing in my disk or in my EBS volumes, that will be available only for a particular EC2 instance. But if I want to share the data across the EC2 instances, so something like this. So I have multiple EC2 instances, and 2 and 3, and each of them has its own EBS volume. So whatever the data we are going to store in this EBS volume, that is available only for this particular instance, EC2 instance. Okay, this instance EC2, this also EC2. Okay, so here again I can able to extend the storage of this to a something like 2 terabytes. I can make even as big as 1 terabyte. Okay, or 2 terabyte, like that. So whatever the data which I'm storing here, this could be accessible only by this EC2 instance. In case I want to share the data from across the EC2 instances, what is an option? So I want a capability to store. So in that case, probably I can detach this EC2 instance, this EBS volume. I can attach the same EC2 volume into the other instance. Okay, I can detach it from here, I can attach to another. That is one way that I can able to share the data. from one EC2 instance to another EC2 instance. It's as good as you remove hard disk from your computer and you attach that hard disk to another computer, another laptop, so that you can able to share the data. But that's not something like a very scalable solution, or it's not like a preferred solution. If my requirement is something like I want to have a data which needs to be shared and accessible from all different instances. Okay, so I have an instance here, and so I want some kind of a common storage which needs to be shared across all these different EC2 instances. Then what is an option I have? So in the traditional infrastructure, we have something called NFS, so network file system. So I can create an NFS storage, or so using that I can able to share the data. Similar to that, you have something called EFS, elastic file system. So once you create an elastic file system, that I can able to mount it in a different EC2 instances. So if this EC2 instance writes some data in that EFS storage, this can be accessible from other EC2 instance also. So this is one way of sharing the data between the EC2 instances. Again, this provides a very high scalable storage. I can able to store terabytes or petabytes of data in AFS. Okay, this is one option. Is there any other option? I want capability of sharing the data across the EC2 instances, and also the data needs to be accessible over the internet. Okay, from a non-EC2 instances also. The EFS is something like restricted to be accessible only within the EC2 instances. I want to have some storage which needs to be shared across EC2 instances, and also it should be something accessible over the internet. So that's where you get, so I want something accessible over the internet. Okay, so I need to go for an S3, simple storage service. Okay, so it enables to share the data across the EC2 instances, and also it enables to share with who has access to the internet. All right. And so that's what these three are a very key storage services with respect to AWS, EBS, EFS, and S3. And apart from that, we have few other services. This Amazon Glacier is being used for doing an archival and taking a backup. So if I want to have like terabytes of data, I want to just archive the data and keep it in a cold storage. I'm not accessing the data very frequently. Then I can go for a Amazon Glacier. This provides a archival or a backup of your data. Then if I want to migrate the data from a traditional data storage systems to my AWS, for example, I need to migrate the data from NFS storage to EFS, or I need to migrate the data from existing volumes, okay, to EBS volumes, or like I need to load the data from the local file system to my S3. So this storage gateway provides the connectivity between the different the standard protocols to access the data like NFS or the EBS, the volumes or tapes. From there, I can able to copy the data to my different AWS services. This provides the different connectors to kind of migrate the data, move the data from one medium to another medium. So this formulates a base storage services. In this, if let's get into S3 in detail. So S3 provides a scalable object storage capacity in Amazon Web Services Cloud. Okay, so basically it provides a storage for the internet, natively online HTTP access storage that allows you to store and retrieve any amount of data anytime from anywhere on the web. It's very highly scalable and reliable, fast and durable. When you say durable, so whatever the data which I am storing in S3, they ensure you'll never lose the data. Okay, and similarly, they ensure the high availability in terms of whenever I'm going to request to access the data, you will always get the data. Your request will not fail. Okay, they ensure the durability and the availability of the data. So that is something, two key critical parameters for a cloud storage. Okay, so let's see. So before getting into the concepts, let's try to access our console, and let's first get login into. Okay, so guys, I will just park the questions towards the end. So let me just continue. I hope the audio is fine. In case you're facing any issues with the audio, you let me know. I think the majority of the people, it should be fine. In case a few of you facing, it might be an issue with your configurations. Please check that. So let me just connect to the AWS portal. AWS console. Let's get in here. If you already have an account and you created as we seen in the first session, you can just use the same account. You log. Okay, I'm gonna log in into my portal. All right, provide your credentials, and it'll take you to the AWS Management Console. I'm in now. Okay, so let's go to the services. So you can see the S3 EFS and S3 Glacier storage gateway. There is one more new addition of FSX, and EBS is not there. EBS you could find as part of the EC2. So this we have seen in the last session. If you go to EC2, whenever you're creating a EC2 instances, in the EC2 dashboard you can see EBS, Elastic Block Store. So the volume, snapshots, lifecycle manager, everything is there here. Let's come back to the S3. So let's see how I can store some data in S3. So this is an S3 dashboard. So currently I don't have anything. So let's try to understand the concepts related to S3, and we'll come back and we'll create some buckets. So S3, Amazon S3 stores data as objects within buckets. So basically, if I want to store some data in S3, I need to create buckets. Okay, that buckets is nothing but collection of objects. An object is composed of a file and optionally any metadata that describes that file. So object is nothing but a file which we are going to store along with the metadata about the file. What is the metadata? The name of the file, when the file is created, and who is the author, and when it's modified, when it's accessed. All the metadata information would be there along with that. And we can create up to 100 buckets in each account, and you can control access to the bucket and its objects. So we can provide an access control to the bucket, saying that this bucket can be accessible only by me or only by the authorized users. Okay, so if you look at the a pictorial illustration here, so you can create S3 composes of multiple buckets, and the bucket consists of multiple objects. So objects is nothing but the file which I'm going to store in the bucket. So object could be like either a text file or a log file. It could be a zip file, or it could be a jar file, or an image, or a video, or audio. It could be anything, any type of file. Why we calling it an object here? So apart from the raw file, it also has some metadata about the file. So that has been abstracted as a S3 object here. All right. And in S3, we can store an unlimited number of objects in a bucket. Once you create a bucket, there is no specific limit how many objects or how many files I can load. So that virtually there is no limit for that. and objects can be up to 5 TB. This is like I can have a single object or a file which is up to size 5 TB that I can able to store in S3. No bucket size limit. So for a bucket there is no size limit, and it's designed for 99.9999999% durability and 99.9% availability. When I talk about durability, this ensures whatever the data which I am storing in the S3, it you'll never lose the data. So they ensure the replication of the data in case even some of the storage servers goes down, and recovery of the data, backup of the data, everything will be taken care by the S3 behind the scene. And 99.99% availability, which means whenever I'm going to make a request to either write or read the data, that always I can able to perform. Okay, so can use HTTP as endpoints to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time from anywhere on the web. Is highly scalable, reliable, fast, and inexpensive. Again, so they will be charging based on the amount of data which I'm storing and how many read requests or write requests I am making. So based on that basis, the charging will happen. So relatively, it's very cheaper for storing a large amount of data. So can use optional server-side encryption using AWS or customer managed provide client-side encryption. It's also possible. Whatever the data which I'm storing in S3 buckets, I can encrypt and store. Okay, and also they providing an auditing. Auditing is provided so that whatever that objects I'm creating and whenever I'm making any updations, everything will be audited. Okay, so the complete audit trail I can able to access. And they also provide a REST API and a SOAP API, SOAP web services. If you want to access the S3 over your programs, if I want to write a application and from that application I want to access the S3 storage directly, I can either access it over a REST API or using a SOAP web service, or there is a AWS SDK kit we have. Using that AWS SDK also I can able to access. Cool. Let's come back here. Let's see how to first create a bucket. So bucket we already seen. Bucket is a collection of objects. It's a container, okay, for storing your data. And normally this S3 buckets is specific to particular region. So whatever the default it's created in a global region. Okay, so currently we are on a global, but normally whenever the bucket we are creating, the bucket will be created in the specific region. So if I'm operating on a two different region, I can have a bucket in one region, the same name I can have it in the other region also. Okay, so let's create a bucket here. So this is a bucket name. So the bucket name should be something like unique. This name should not be used by someone else in the same region, within the region. Okay, and so I'm just providing AWS Webinar demo. Okay, so this is my bucket name, and this bucket I'm creating in the Asia Pacific region. So you can select which region I want to create the bucket. I'm creating the bucket in the Asia Pacific. Okay, and so let's create it. So now you can see I have created a bucket, and this bucket has been created with that Mumbai region. Okay, so in the S3 I can have one bucket and which is spread across one region. All right, and let me see if I want to create another bucket, the same one, AWS Webinar S3 demo, and I'm going to select a different region. I think this it's already selected in that region. So I'm going to creating another bucket. So I created two different buckets now. So one is available in Asia Pacific region, other one is in a Singapore region. All right. So let's see what are the other like configurations we can able to provide while creating the buckets. So this I just created with the default configurations. So apart from that, we can also provide. Let me just look at this one. So if I want to upload some data, right? So I will come back to the configuration in a while. So let's first see. I created a bucket now with the default configuration, and if I want to load some data, so it could be I can simply drag and drop the data from here. So if I want to, for example, load this PDF file here, so you just upload it. So it's got loaded. Okay. So this if you just go back, so I created a bucket, and in that bucket I got a file uploaded. Okay, so this file has set of properties. So this is nothing but an object. Whatever I uploaded, this file is being considered as an object with respect to S3. So what are the properties of these objects? You can find. So for this object, you can basically get the details related to. These are the basic properties overview. So whatever I got is the latest version, and what is the size, and when is it last modified, and you would be getting something called object URL. What is this object URL? So this particular file can be accessible over the internet using this particular object URL. Okay, so whatever the objects which I am storing in the S3 will have a URL, and using that particular URL we can able to access the data. Okay, so what is the format of this object URL? So this is the URL format. Okay, so so it's going to be if you look at this, let me just copy this. Okay, so it will be HTTP so HTTP, then it's like the first portion is, let me just paste this. So this is basically the bucket name. Whatever the bucket we created, the name of the bucket. Then this is a standard path, the domain name. So it's S3, and which region it belongs to. It's Mumbai, and AWS.com. So if you see the URL, the first portion, so the domain name comprises of your bucket and the region. Okay, followed by that object name or the file name. In case if I'm going to place this in a folder, it's also possible I can able to organize the data in a folder. Okay, so if I'm just creating a folder like training, the URL would look like this. How do we create a folder here? So once I got a bucket, you can create a folder, and you can create a folder with multiple hierarchies. So I'm going to create a folder called training. Save this. So under training, I can able to upload the same file. Okay. So if I try to access this one. You can see this one. So in the URL, you got the same, that the folder name is coming as part of the path training, and followed by the file name. So I can have n level of folders. The training would be a parent folder. Under that, I can have the different folders, and I can create again multiple subfolders. So you can organize the data the way you are organizing in your file system. So begin the scene, what they are doing is, whatever the file I'm uploading, they are actually kind of distributing that file across the cloud, and store it in a different machines. Then whenever you're going to access this particular file, they kind of just uh, assemble that all the distributed blocks, and providing you the file. Okay, so that's more on an internal side. But normally each of the object which you're uploading will have the owner details. So the owner is more of a alphanumeric ID, which indicates who has uploaded this particular file, who is the owner of this particular object when it's last modified. This again it's basically a unique identifier. And the storage class is indicates what kind of a storage is, a cloud cold storage or hot storage or a standard storage. So it's a standard. What is the size? And this is the key. So the key is nothing but it's used to access that object. This we call it as a object key. So your URL will compose of your bucket and your object key. Okay, cool. So we have seen how to upload a file and how to create. Then if I want to download the file, you can simply so if you want to access the file, you can try to access it. But currently what happens is this file is not accessible, so it tells access denied. Why? So this by default, the objects we are uploading there does not have permission to access it over public. So we need to go and change the permissions. So here I'm making this access to the public. So currently the public access has been blocked. So here I can make a configuration whether I want to enable only the read access or write access. So read object. So the block public access settings turned on as bucket prevent granting public access. So here what is the problem is, the bucket which I created does not have a public access. So without the public bucket not having a public access, so I can't have a object to be accessible over the public. Okay, so let's revisit the bucket creation and the bucket level properties. Or let me just try to create one more bucket to just see this. So AWS. So earlier we just created the bucket with the default configuration, and we have seen how to upload the data into that bucket and how to create the folders. So I'm going to see AWS Cloud, SP demo 2, and ACF specific, that's fine. Then I'm going to say next. So when I say next, here I can have few options. So what are those things? Whether I want to enable the versioning. Okay, so the versioning indicates when I upload an object, whether I want to whenever there is a change happens, whenever I'm uploaded that modified files, do I need to keep track of the versioning? If I say yes, the versioning will be maintained. So currently I'm just going without versioning, and the server access logging, if I enable this one, so this basically enables the server access logs. That means whatever the request comes and your S3 objects being accessed, right, the complete the access logs you can able to get it. So if you enable this one, so currently I'm going with the default one. Then you have another one, tags. So tags is basically helps to, if I'm going to create multiple buckets, right, I can provide some kind of a labels to the bucket. So using this label, I can able to easily filter or group the buckets. Going next, so block public access. Okay, by default, the public access is being blocked. So this is for a safety reason. If you want to enable this bucket to be accessible over the public, you can just enable this one. Again, you have a lot of other the granular access control to enable public access only for uh, block public access to buckets and objects granted through new access control list or any access control. There are different granular settings of there. So currently I'm just enabling the public access. Okay, see next. Set permissions. So versioning is disabled, several logs disabled. So everything I kept it as a default one. Only thing I enabled the public access. So create a bucket. So I created a bucket. So let me just upload the data into this. Okay, and am I able to access this data? Let me try. No, because now the bucket has the public access, but that object which I uploaded, right, that object does not have a permission to be accessible over public. So how do we make it to accessible public? We can say make public, or we go back. So you can have a permissions. The permissions also you can actually enable the public access. So for time being, I'm just going to overview, and I'm making to be accessible over public, so it is successful. So once I did this one, now this particular URL to be accessible or public. So if I just hit the URL, I can able to access this content. Okay, so now this particular file is accessible. Similarly, I can able to expose the entire directory, a set of files. Okay, so I can able to download. You can able to open and download. So open able to do, and what are the other options? I can able to download, or you can able to download as a different file. Okay, save as option you'll get. Okay, save link as. So if you want to save as a different file name, and if you want to just copy the path, you can just copy. All right, so these are the basic object level the settings. So let's go to the properties. So here we have like the different storage classes. Okay, so this depends on how frequently I'm going to access the data. So the default one is the standard storage. If you want, we can actually change the storage class. Okay, so when the storage class is standard, so it is something like the frequently accessed data can be placed in the standard. Okay, so the intelligent tiering is something like long-lived data without changing or unknown access patterns. So that is something like if I'm going to keep the data for 30 days, and so I'm going to keep the data for more than like minimum 30 days. I'm going to keep it. Okay, so this is something like I'll just store the data and I may just delete it. I'm not storing it for a long time. So this is like minimum I'm going to store for 30 days. Then I may choose this intelligent tiering, or a standard 1A or one zone 1A. So this is something like a long-lived data, but without unknown access patterns. Whether it's like a intelligent tiering means without unknown access pattern. That means I don't know whether it will be frequently accessed or infrequently accessed. But if you're sure it is long-lived, infrequently accessed, we can go for a standard 1A. The Glacier, earlier I was talking about, right? If I want to archive the data, okay, in this case the data is going to be stored more than 30 days, more than 90 days, and it's more of an archival. So I will not requesting to access the data immediately. So in that case, the Glacier storage class we can opt. So what is the or Glacier deep dive? So this is something like if when I'm storing the data in a Glacier, whenever I'm going to read the data, it may take few minutes, okay, to get the data. Whereas if it is standard, it will give you the data very faster. So if it is a Glacier deep dive archive, this is again like the data which is going to be archived for longer time. We can go for this storage class. So based on the storage class you are selecting, the price will vary. So for a standard storage class, the price will be higher. Whereas the Glacier deep storage, the price will be lower because I'm not going to access data very frequently. It's more of a cold storage. So depends on the kind of a storage class which I'm choosing, the pricing may vary. Okay, and that's one thing. And most of the cases, like when I'm going to use a S3 for just storing application data, it will be a standard storage. But I'm using S3 for archiving my data. You can change the storage class as Glacier. Okay, then you can just update the property. That's all. Then you have also got an encryption option. If you want to encrypt the data, so this is like a object level settings. So if I want to encrypt this particular file, so I can use. But for doing an encryption, I need to first create like a key. The key set has to be created, and once that key set is created, we can able to see the list of keys here. And using that particular key, I can encrypt it. Okay. Then I can also add some metadata. So the metadata is about, so currently it has a content type. So if you want to just add some of the metadata, so like who is the author. So these are the different metadata: content type and content language, or what is the type of encoding it's being used. So we can pick any of this metadata. All right. Then we can actually provide a tags. So we can say something like the type of the data is going to be something like training POC. So this is just something like for our reference. So this can be used to filter and group the data. And once you enable the object lock, so this particular object cannot be deleted. Okay, in case accidentally if you feel this particular file maybe this is something like a critical file, I don't want to enable the delete option. Okay, I want to prevent any accidental deletes, so I can enable the object lock. Okay, so once the object lock is enabled, so if I want to enable an object lock for a particular object, first of all it should be enabled at a bucket level. Object lock is disabled for this bucket, so this bucket does not have an object lock, so I can't apply for this one. Okay, so these are something like the object level configurations: storage class, encryption, and we can provide some metadata tags, or we can set the object lock. And when it comes to the permissions, I can actually update the different permissions, who can access this particular object. Okay, so I can add a set of AWS account users or emails. For them, I can provide an access, read access, or write access, or read write access, or I can provide the access to the entire public. Okay, so that complete access control I can able to manage it from here. So select from. It's also possible if I store the data in a CSV format or a JSON or Parquet, any of this particular format, right? I can able to query the data. So they basically provide some kind of a SQL engine on top of an S3, and using this select from option, in case if the file format is any of this CSV or JSON or Parquet, we can able to analyze the data using S3. Okay, so this is something like an interesting feature. So let's come back here. So now I'm at a bucket. So let's go back here. Now I already created this AWS Webinar S3 demo bucket. If I want to make any changes at a bucket level, so once the bucket is created, you have a complete access to change the bucket level properties. So what are the bucket level properties we have? So one is the versioning. So this versioning indicates whether whether the versioning needs to be enabled or not. Currently the versioning is not enabled. In case if I'm say enabling the versioning, so version is enabled for this particular bucket. So let's see how this works. So currently when I look at this particular file, right, so it shows latest version. Okay, this is the latest, only one version is there, latest version. So I have enabled the versioning. I'm going to upload. So let's assume I have updated the file. I'm uploading the updated file here. So currently I didn't update. I am just uploading the same one. Okay, so now if you see, so this is uploaded just now. Last modified is just now. If I basically go and check, I have two versions. Once you enable the version, right, so like whatever the file we uploaded, it will keep, whenever there is a change happens on that particular file, it will keep track of the version history. So if I want this particular, so the latest version, by default it will show the latest version, but if I have the previous one, I can take this one and I can able to download and access the older version of the file also. That is a versioning, right? So once you enable the versioning, then you got something, server access logging. So once the server access logging is enabled, so we can say where the access log to be created, where the log can be created in a different bucket or a same bucket. So I'm saying just create in the same bucket. Okay, then once it's being enabled, so it's basically whenever that file is getting accessed, it may generate some access logs. That access logs would be kind of available in this location itself. Okay, so whenever I say open, so I'm able to open this file, and currently the access is not there. So because I have not made this one as public, how do you change this access control? You can go to the bucket. Okay, and let's go to the permissions. So you can edit, so you can uncheck. Currently by default block all public access. So currently I'm just unchecking that, and you can confirm. All right, so I have enabled the public access. Then after enabling the, so I enable the public access at a bucket level. Okay, now I can go and enable at the object level, make this as public so that it can be accessible over the internet. So let's come back. So we have seen a few properties. So what is versioning, and the access, server access control logs. Then we have a few more things. This is something like static web hosting. This just if I have a bunch of static HTML files and CSS JavaScript, right, I can actually keep those files. I can enable the static web hosting, so that using this S3 URL itself, I can able to access the static web pages. So this is an object level logging. So this object level logging is something like, as I mentioned here, so once you enable this object level logging, whenever the particular object is being accessed or updated, so it will keep track of all the log trails. Okay, whenever there is a read happens and whenever write happens, it can keep track of that one. But there is a separate charge for this particular feature, and I can apply a encryption at a bucket level also. Okay, so once I enabled a particular encryption using the specific key, that whatever the data which I'm storing within that bucket, all these things will have this encryption applied. Okay, then the object log. So this object log is something So this we need to enable it while creating the bucket. So currently the bucket is already created. During the creation time, the wizard I can able to enable the object lock. So this is basically to avoid any accidental deletion of your buckets. Once the object lock enabled at a bucket level, I can't delete any objects within the bucket um, without uh, disabling this object lock. Okay, so tags will give an additional label or information for the buckets. So this is something like transfer acceleration. So this is some of the features. It's one of the important feature. This enables fast and easy secure transfer of files from one bucket to another bucket. Okay, if I want to transfer the data from like one region, for example, from Mumbai region to like a Singapore region, and I can actually provide some settings here. Once I enable the transfer acceleration, so whenever I'm going to access the data which is available in the file, right, in the buckets, right, so it depends on from which region you are accessing, it will be faster. For example, um, so there is a feature available here. So this will actually just show so upload speed comparison in selected region. So it shows if I'm going to use the Mumbai region, what would be the upload speed? So S3 direct upload speed. If I'm just uploading some data in the Mumbai region as a normal upload, so it actually does some profiling, and it's going to show some statistics in a while. So it will show how much time it takes if I do a normal update. The same data, if I upload using a accelerated transfer, how much improvement I will be getting. So it will show the statistics, and based on that I can choose whether I can go for an accelerated transfer or a normal transfer. The accelerated transfer will be much more faster compared to a regular data transfer, and but there is an additional charge for the accelerated transfer. So okay, so whatever you got here is, if I'm using a Mumbai region and if I'm going to upload data, the regular upload will be 20% slower than the accelerated transfer. If I enable the accelerated transfer, it will be 20% faster. The same thing if I look for another region, the difference may vary. Okay, region to region. For Mumbai, it's a 20% slower, but for San Francisco, it may be a different statistics, and depends on to which region you have the buckets and to which region you're going to upload the data. We can decide whether you want to go for an accelerated transfer or a regular transfer. Okay, so I'm just waiting for to get this stats, then we'll move on. See here. So since the Mumbai is my the current region, so having an accelerated transfer for a same Mumbai region will not yield you a good benefit. But when I'm going to upload a data into a different region, so in this case San Francisco, so your regular upload will be 53% slower. So when I'm going for an accelerated transfer, it will be 53% faster. Okay, so like that you can get the statistics. Then so once you enable this one, so that there will be separate charges for that, but your uploads will be faster. Then you have something else called requester pace. So this is like normally how the pricing works. So depends on how much data we are storing. Per GB basis they will calculate, and also how many read requests, put requests, or get requests you're having, read or write request. So when you're you have a feature called requester pace. So this is something like when you enable this option, and so this is something like where whatever the URL you are getting, right. So this is something like I'm going to load share some data over the S3 bucket, and whoever is accessing the data, they are supposed to make a payment. Instead, we as a host to bear the cost. So I can make the people who are accessing the data to make the payment. But for that, what is the prerequisite is that people who are accessing this data should have a valid AWS account. So once they have a valid AWS account, once we enable this particular feature, requester pays, then like whenever you are going to access this URL, so if there is any charge associated, that charge will be bear by the requesters. Okay, so currently the access is denied. So in this case, you can able to access only from the particular account. So I'm just making this. So since I made a requester pays, so this access is being denied. When I say requester pays, I need to provide access for a set of AWS accounts, so that only from that particular account the people can able to access. Whenever they are accessing, the charge will be bear by them. Okay, let me just change this option. So these are some of the key properties related to S3. We talked about permission at a bucket level. I can provide an access control list. So this particular bucket can be accessible by so and so AWS accounts. And what are the permissions I am providing? They can only list the objects or write or read write. They can able to do all these things. Or these are the management configurations. So here I can provide like a policies to manage the life cycle of the data or the objects which I'm storing in the bucket. Okay, so what kind of a life cycle policy I can create? So I can say like whenever the data resides more than 30 days in a particular bucket, you make the data from a standard class to you move the data to a frequent access to infrequent access tier, so that the cost will be less. Then if it resides in the same tier for more than like 90 days, then you may move to Glacier tier. Okay, so or if you want to do housekeeping of the data, that I can able to configure it using this lifecycle policies. Then you got also a kind of a replication. So the replication is something like I'm storing some kind of an application data or my the business data in S3 bucket. I also want this data to be available in some other buckets in another region. So I can do a cross region replication or same region replication. When you say same region replication, whatever the data which I'm writing in one bucket, it could be replicated in another bucket. When I say cross region replication, the data which I'm writing in one of the bucket in one region can be replicated in the other region, different another different bucket in the other region. So across the regions, I can able to do the replication. So there are a few things we can able to set up here, and also I can able to get some analytics here in terms of the metrics related to how many requests has come and how much data is being stored, and what is like the average number of requests per day, which bucket is getting more requests, what is the peak time. So various analytics we can details we can able to get it using this analytics and the metrics. Okay, so again we need to enable few things in order to get those informations. Then this access points, so I can create if I want to make this bucket accessible over like a REST API or over a AWS command line interface or a AWS SDK, I can create some access points here, and using that I can able to access this buckets. Okay, so that's again related to a networking concept. So overall, if you see, so it's something like I can use a S3 for the regular storage of a data, and also can be used for backup. So this is the typical use case. And also I can use a S3 for doing any web hosting. If my website is something like a static website, I can use a S3 to host my static websites. Or if I'm going to do kind of some media streaming, so I want to have some videos or audios stored in S3, and I can able to stream those audios or videos from S3. Or I can able to keep S3 as a software inventory, that whenever I want to provision the softwares while I'm creating a VMs, or when I'm going to kind of provisioning a new servers, that can be taken from the S3 storage we can provision. And S3 can also be used to take backups. If you remember, with the EC2 for a EC2 instance, or we can take a snapshot of the EC2 instance volumes. So all the snapshots or the backup of AMI images, everything gets stored into the S3. Okay, so the S3 can be used for any type of storages, ranging from a general storage to backup, application file hosting, media hosting, software delivery, and store AMIs or snapshots. Okay, so let me just come back. And again, I may create a different set of buckets here. I can able to upload the data and download the data. Then I have a set of properties to be configured. I can enable a versioning, I can enable the access logs, and I can able to enable a object locking. Okay, or I can enable object level logging, so that whatever the objects which I'm able to store and retrieve, I can able to get the complete audit trail. And I can able to encrypt the data also. And if I want to improve the speed of upload or a download, I can basically enable the transfer acceleration. And there is an option also available to make the requester to pay. Instead, when you're storing the data and you're making the data to be accessible by a lot of users, the users who are accessing that can able to pay. It's more like a subscription basis. Who are subscribed for accessing your data, they can make a payment for that. Cool. Then overall, so what are the ways I can work with the S3? One is using this management console. Using this management console, I can come here, create the buckets, and create the folder structure. I can upload the data, or I can download, or I can get that URL, and using that URL, I can able to share the data. Okay, that's one thing. Then the other one is you have some tools, something called S3 browser. So for an FTP, you have FileZilla, right? So that will help you to do the file transfers. Similarly, you have some desktop tools which is available to interact with the S3 buckets. So this is one such tool, S3 browser. So how do you basically okay, let me just create an account. So what I can do is, let me just delete this bucket. So let me just remove this account. So this is the bucket, manage accounts. Okay, so let me just remove this account. What I can do is, for example, this is AWS S3 demo. Okay, so if I want to basically programmatically access the S3, right? So the regular credential which we are using with the AWS will not work. like the credential which you are using to log in into your AWS account will not work. I need to have something called access key and the secret access key ID and secret access key. How do you get this one? So once you have your account created, let me just go back. So once, oops, okay. So once you have your account created, you can actually generate this access ID key, and secret secret access key. So from our account, you just go to your My Credentials. So if you go to My Credentials under your account, so it will show the details related to the access ID and the secret access key. Currently it's not being created. Okay, so what I can do, I can create a new access key. So once it created, it will show this information for, so this, once it's created, right, you need to download and keep this details safe. Once you lost this information, you can't regenerate this information. Only you will get access key ID. You can't regenerate the secret access key. If you want it again, you can create a new pair of access key and secret access key. So for a safer side, you should download and keep it. And for now, I can use this. If I want to connect to my AWS account programmatically or from any other external tool, I require these two credentials. Let's come back to the tool, and here I'm trying to add a new account. Provide the access key ID as this and secret access key as this. Okay, add a new account. So it's got added. Okay, save changes. So now when I select this particular account, it will list down the buckets. So what I can do, so all the S3 the buckets I can able to manage using this tool. Okay, so I can able to perform all the operations whatever we did there. So I can able to delete the bucket, or so if you want to delete this bucket, you can delete it from here. And if you want to create a new bucket, you can create it, or if you want to change the properties. Okay, so edit permissions you can able to do, or if you want to enable the transfer or acceleration, you can do the cross region replication, lifecycle management, whatever the properties we have seen there, right? So all those things we can able to do. So this also shows the this bucket level properties. So total how many files are there, folders are there, and everything. The one important, then the different versions, the version details you can get, and the preview is fine, and HTTP headers and the permissions we get. And one important aspect here is, for example, to a file. Okay, so what it will do is, it's like a torrent. So when I'm going to upload it or download it over the web directly, in case if there is any disturbance of the web internet connectivity, I will lose that whatever that upload I made or whatever the download I made. But this will act as a the file manager. Okay, so like a torrent site. So if I want to upload some data, for example, I want to upload some bigger data. So let's say I want to upload some other data. Okay, so I can just drag and drop to which bucket I want to upload it. I can upload a file or a folder. So I just pick up light webinar, big data labs dataset. All right, so I'm just uploading a data. So what it will do is, like it's a smaller file, it just uploads just right away. If it's something like a very bigger file, to something like, let me just try to find a slightly bigger file. Okay. Okay, so if I just want to upload this particular file, right, upload folders, I want to upload this entire folder details. Okay. So it will basically upload it into multiple tasks. Okay, so if you see here, it creates multiple tasks. So I need to upload all these files. So it will just queue up all the things. It will upload one by one. Okay. In case in between, if there is internet, the connectivity stops, or some of the things have failed, I can able to come back and resume it from wherever I left. So total, it by default it breaks down into like 8 MB of file, and each file it's trying to upload as a separate tasks. Okay, it's just queue up, it can just keep on upload. Once all this parts is uploaded, so that will be kind of reflected into your S3 bucket. The same way the download also works. If I want to download a 8 GB data or a 10 GB data, so it's something like it downloads part by part. So in that way, using these tools will be very handy to work with your S3 buckets. So apart from these tools, I can also work with the S3 bucket by just using a API or using the SDK. In all those cases, I need to have an access key ID and secret access key. Okay, so using that I can able to access. So this is pretty much about S3 and what are the concepts related to S3 and what are the different configurations we can do and what are the ways you can able to access the S3 bucket. And when it comes to the pricing, how they are charging it, and as part of the free tier, there is a 5 GB of data we can able to store. In S3 there is no cost for that, so 5 GB we can store. Okay, and apart from that, so there is a charge. So depends on the storage class. If it is a standard, so this is a rate for first 50 terabyte. So it's like as you store more data, the storage price will come down. For every GB, it is approximately 1.875 paise. So approximately 2 rupees per GB. Okay, if I'm going to store 100 GB, it's something like 200 rupees per GB per month. Okay, and if it is a standard, if it is the other tier, intelligent tiering, this is also like if it is a infrequent access tier, you can see there is a difference. This is lower, the price is less. When it comes Glacier, the price is very less. So when you're going to store the data, we need to ensure whether it's going to be a standard, I'm going to access the data very frequently, or it's going to be just used for a backup archive. So accordingly, I need to choose the storage class so that I can save the cost. So this is just cost around so 0.002 into 75, just 50 paise per GB compared to 2 rupees. All right, and also there is a so one is based on the storage, the other one is based on how many how many write or how many put, copy, post list request I'm getting. For every 1000 requests, so the charge is this much. Okay, it's almost like 50 paise, you'll get it. Okay, so again this charge will be based on the storage class. So as even though if you store less data, but there are too many people accessing the data, based on the access, the charge will be calculated. Then based on how much data is getting transferred from the internet. Okay, then for every GB of data which is getting transferred, So for first 1 GB, no price, but beyond that there is a charge. Okay, and again for a management replication, there is a separate charge. If I'm using object tagging or analytics, there is a separate charge for that. Replication, there is a separate price. Okay, so this shows how the pricing happens. Basically, the pricing is based on a storage and how many, how frequently you're going to access the data, based on the number of requests you're making to read, write, or list, and also the amount of data which you are transferring over the internet, and the bandwidth consumption for that, and also it's based on like you're going to use any of the management features or analytical features or the data replication or transfer acceleration. For all those things, there is separate pricing. All right, so with this, let me wind up this concepts. Let me just hand it over to SkillsUp to share some updates, and post that we'll take up a QA.
Great, Sarana. Thanks so much for delivering such a wonderful webinar on AWS. So this is our third session. I think a lot of people have joined back the session. So there are little changes for you to go and check the recordings, guys. So I'll just quickly share my screen to show you, because before we had hidden those pages. Right now we have kept it open. So on the website, if you go, we have made a separate tab called webinar recording. Under that, all the webinars, whatever we are conducting, it's available. For AWS, you can click on AWS. Yeah, and here is the page. So we have already done the 11th and 20th August session. So today we are on 26th. So once the session is over, we will be uploading both Facebook and YouTube links. And in case if anybody is still interested to take our training programs, here is the complete details. Okay, still we are running the discount offer of 4,956. Anybody wants to avail, you can avail this offer. The content is available here, and for the enrollment, it is here. Here you can click on this button, and Facebook is also you can directly access it from over here. So all the details are available of the recordings in the Facebook or the YouTube links, which will be provided here on this recording section. You can go and make use of these recordings. Okay. So that's all from my side, Sarvana. You can take over the Q&A session.
All right, thank you, Kumar. So let me just see how to create public, private, protected buckets, how to access them. So I got a question regarding how to create public, private, and protected buckets. So as I shown, like so by default, whatever the bucket you're creating is like a private bucket, and you have a different access control. As I mentioned, you can use that the different levels of permission to enable the access. Okay, if you want to make it public, you can simply unblock the access to everyone. If you want to make it something like a private, only access by you, that's the default behavior. If you want to make it something like a protected, where this bucket has to be shared with few of the other team members or other AWS accounts, that accounts which you want to share, you can add, and also you can control the access levels, that whether they can able to access only in the read mode or write mode, or both read write mode. So that we can able to manage user the access control and the permissions what we have seen. Are there any APIs to do CRUD on bucket and object? Yes. So the question from Mayur. Yes, of course. That's what I was telling. There is a REST API available, and also there is a Java SDK, and the SDK for AWS is available in a different language. Using that, we can able to perform all CRUD operations on the bucket. And if you want to connect to the bucket, you need to have the connectivity to our account. You should have a access key ID and secret key access to be generated. Using that only, you can able to connect to your account. And how the compute, so the other question from Nagraj, how the computing services connected with the data services in AWS. So so the computing services, so basically just provides the computing power, but that also requires to have some storage, right? So one direct connectivity is the EBS volumes. So whatever the like a service the EC2 instance or any other computing service which you're using. If it is an EC2 instance, it requires the EBS volume to persist the data of whatever you're storing in the EC2 instance. Otherwise, if the computing services needs to share the data between the different applications or different services, it has to use any of this storage service like S3 or EFS. Okay. So can we store data on S3 bucket through scripting? Yes, we can. There are some CLI commands out there. So once you have installed the AWS CLI, you can write the using the commands. Use that you can able to work with S3 buckets Rakesh. And there is another question from Prakati. When metadata is useful or purpose of use of metadata? So the metadata is basically provides the details about the objects which you are storing, so that we can understand who is the owner and when what is the size of the data, and who was when it got created or when it's updated, what type of data. So that's something like useful to just understand what type of data we have in the buckets. Okay. And but Raju have one question. Bucket level access is read only, but object within the bucket access is level is right. Then which case, see, if the bucket level access, so the bucket level access will always supersede your object level access. Okay. So if the overall bucket is read only, even if your object is right, then there is a problem. Only you can get a read access. But you can make it the other way around. You can make the bucket as a write, but I can make some of the objects as read only. Okay, Raju. Then I got another question. When metadata comes in pictures, or what purpose? What's the purpose of using it? No, so there is a question from Prakati. When metadata comes in picture, or what's purpose of using it? No, what I understand is when I'm going to load pictures or videos, what is the metadata? So the metadata is about what is the size of your video file or picture, what is the name of the file, and when it got created, when it's got updated, like that. Yes. The requester pay like Netflix. Yes, that's right, 𝗦𝗸𝗶𝗹𝗵𝗁. And so Venkatesh has a set of questions. S3 versioning. When the new version has been created for the same existing object which has been marked as public access, but when I'm referring the newly created version object link in browser, I have got an error access denied. So that is something like the default behavior on S3 bucket. We can control that behavior by just updating the access control configuration, so that whatever the objects which I'm loading, by default we want to make it public. It would be possible, Venkatesh. And yeah, so that is something what you're getting is something kind of a default behavior that we can able to change if you want. So do you have any security group concept for accessing S3 bucket from EC2? No, so when you're going to access S3 from EC2, it's nothing but from EC2 directly you can't access the S3, right? In EC2, if you're running some application, from that application only you can access. As such, there is no security group, but you can apply some kind of rules and permissions. Okay, and also moreover, from EC2, like if you're running some application on EC2, that application only can access the S3. As such, EC2 instance cannot directly access that, whatever that application or software is running on that. So in that case, that application should have a proper access to access the S3 bucket. Okay, so as such, there is no direct security group applied for S3. So, but the access will be controlled with the permissions and the ACL list. Okay. So this compression of the object reduces the storage cost and just feature for the security. Yes. No, we are talking about encryption. So the encryption is basically for a safety. The encryption does not compress the data. That just encrypts the data format. But if you want to enable some compression, we can do so that the storage can be reduced. Is S3 browser a third-party tool or it's from AWS? It's a third-party tool. It's not from AWS. What is a canonical ID? What is canonical ID? Is something like a unique identifier to identify the S3 account. Okay. Parquet file format. So that is one of the file format, like we have a text file, sequence file, or a JSON file, right? The Parquet also one type of a file format. Any option to host our dynamic? So Murugishan, you got a question. Is there any option to host our dynamic web application in AWS? Yes, there is an option. The dynamic web application, you can host it directly in the EC2 instances, or I can just use an Elastic Beanstalk that will provide a pass. One simple option is you can use a EC2, you create a EC2 instance, deploy your web application there, that could be accessible. If it is a static web application, I can directly host it in S3. Okay, otherwise, if I don't want EC2 instance, I want a PaaS model, I can use a Elastic Beanstalk to host my dynamic applications. So can you quickly recap? All right, and so the dynamic web application, so just to quickly recap the topics, we discussed about what is a S3. So what are the different storage services which we have? That is like a EBS, EFS, and S3. EBS is basically for persisting the EC2 instance data. Okay, that provides the block storage. In case if I want to share the data across the EC2 instances, I can create a EFS, Elastic File System, so that this EFS can be accessible only from EC2 instances. So this will be useful to store large amount of data and share across the EC2 instances. But if I want to share the data across EC2 instances, the application running within that, also I want to share the data to the public over the internet, then the S3 provides that one. The S3 is the object store. EFS is basically a file system, so it follows a specific file format to store the data. So this is a block storage, this is a file storage, this is an object storage. Okay, that is a three different level of abstraction in the storage we got. And apart from that, we also have a Glacier and storage gateway. Glacier is being used to backup and archive the data, and storage gateway is being used to transfer the data from a traditional storage medium to a AWS storage services. Okay, then with respect to the S3, we have seen what is bucket and what is an object and what is the object URL, and how to create a bucket, and how to work with the different properties related to the bucket, the versioning and enabling the access control and enabling the transfer acceleration, making it to host a static websites, and how you can log the object log, and how do you manage the life cycle of the data which you're storing in S3 buckets, and how do you basically encrypt the data, and how do you access the data which you're storing in S3 from a different ways, using the AWS Management Console, or using the tools like S3 browser, or using a like a REST API and S3 CLI client. Okay, so with this I'll just stop here. So I would like to thank everyone for your participation and your questions, and I would like to hear a quick feedback about today's session. How you guys feel about today's session? Was it informative? Have you learned new concepts and got an idea about what is a storage service and how S3 works? Please share your quick feedback on that. So it's really glad to see that you guys learned new things, and you guys feel that session was very informative. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Anish, Adil, Tanup, Satish. Venkatesh, Pravesh, Prasad. So thanks for your feedback, guys. Thank you, Swati, Venkat, Ravi. Cool. So others also, please drop your comments and your feedback about the session. And in the next webinar, we'll talk about the networking. That is another very important concept related to the AWS. So the hope that will also bring you a lot of insights related to how the networking can be done with AWS. All right. So thank you very much, guys, and stay safe and take care. We'll see you in the next session. Stay tuned. Bye bye.